to identify themselves by their choice. I hope. Okay, are we ready?
We're ready.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call to order this is our inaugural meeting of the Child Care Safety Portal Ad Hoc Committee. We will abbreviate that by just saying we're a committee, okay? We won't go through that all the time. My name is Sue Miller, and I have the privilege of chairing this committee. And we have Heidi McGowan with us, who is going to help facilitate our meetings, just to make sure we keep moving along, because there's a lot of information to share, and also making sure that everybody's voice is heard, and that I don't get out of hand as chair. So Heidi and I've worked together a lot, so they'll be great. And I wanted to remind everybody that this is a public meeting. It's being recorded, which will be of great benefit to those committee members who couldn't be with us today and couldn't call in, but just to be thoughtful about the public recording part of this. So how about, do you want to do housekeeping, and then we'll go around it.
Yes, sounds great. Welcome, everyone. Folks on the phone, are you able to hear us? Okay, so just a reminder, as you're speaking, try to speak up, or at least project towards one of the speakerphones in the room. It helps for those who are listening in. So just a couple of housekeeping items. If you haven't found the restrooms yet, you'll go take a left on this hallway, you'll take a left in the front room, and then you'll take another left, and they're somewhere down there. Did you find them all right? Yeah. All right, great. All right, and we'll be sure to take a break probably around 4:10 or 4:15, and we will have some snacks or food coming. So we'll have about a 15-minute break at that time, and we'll keep our agenda moving so we make sure we don't miss out on any snacks when it's the time. Very important for our time together. So let's go ahead and start with introductions. We'd love to hear your name, and what unique perspective you bring to this committee. So what unique perspective are you bringing to this conversation today and to our work together ahead? And maybe, Sue, why don't you go ahead and kick us off, and we'll do a round.
Okay, great. And then we'll go to those on the phone, too. So we'll try to make sure that we include everybody in this conversation. So as I said, I'm Sue Miller. I chair the Early Learning Council, and so a large part of my role is that the governor asked Miriam and me to convene this group, and so we are here to make sure that we're fulfilling what the governor is asking of us. And from a council perspective, child care is a very high priority for the Early Learning Council, and so this work is very, very important to the council to make sure that we've got information on the portal that parents need. So I'm excited to be here. Chief Moore.
Hi, I'm Jerry Moore. I'm the Chief of Police in Salem. I'm not sure what perspective I bring here other than law enforcement and investigations. And I'm currently a member of the Governor's Child Welfare Advisory Group. And early on, I was involved in critical incident response protocols. So I guess I bring that to the table.
Hi, my name is Dawn Taylor, and I'm the Child Care Director at the Early Learning Division. And I think that the perspective that I bring as a participant is kind of knowing what some of our federal requirements are, but also really thinking about how we ensure that parents have the information that they need to make a child care choices.
I'm Bobby Weber, and I'm a member of the Early Learning Council. And I think what's most relevant is I'm here to listen, that the council is really interested in all of these perspectives. And so I'm going to be trying to hear as accurately as I can.
And my name is Tamara
Tammy Scott. I'm with Office of Child Care. I'm the Field Operations Director. And when I think about this topic, I think the perspective I bring is the topic information and providers, you know, fairness and how those two pull against each other and trying to remember both of them.
My name is Jay Messenger. I'm the new Legal and Enforcement Director for the Office of Child Care. I think I bring in an outside perspective, but with a legal background, and I did enforcement for a long time in the securities industry, so a slightly different perspective. But
no, you go ahead. Go ahead. We'll go to them after we do all of this. Thank you so much.
I'm Meg Kirshnick. I'm here filling in for Eva until she can arrive. I'm one of the staff attorneys at AFSCME, and we, of course, represent child care providers. I'm Nova Connolly. I am a child care provider in Eugene, and I assume that my part in this is to give the provider's point of view on a day-to-day basis, and I'm not sure about the other providers involved, but Nova's Nest, my daycare, is already on the portal for an incident that had happened there. So I think that maybe my daycare has a point of view that can maybe reflect more and give details on that maybe the other two providers don't have.
Thanks, Nova.
My name is Veronica Ochoa, and I am a parent of a 3-year-old in Salem. And I think that what I bring here is just, you know, kind of like our vision when we shop for child care providers. What are we looking for? Price, proximity to our locations, and also respecting the privacy of other families when dealing with sensitive information. And how can we as parents respect that and know what we need to know?
And I'm not a participant member, but I'm Angela Rodriguez, and I've had the honor of communicating with many of you and been the person that's been reaching out. So I'm happy to be the coordinator of this committee, and I look forward to working with you over the next several months.
My name is Martha Brooks, and I'm the State Director for Fight Crime Invest in Kids. I've been doing that for about 15 years, working with law enforcement, senior law enforcement. Two of my members are on the committee with you, Chief Moore and DA Barton. I am also an ELC member, like a couple of others sitting around this table. Most of my work has been done with prenatal to age 3 and pre-K, but this last year to 2 years, I've been working more and more on a state level on child care, specifically funding and other issues, and then on a national level, trying to obtain resources for child care. I'm more or less looked at on this committee as a resource for you.
Thank you, Martha.
Hi,
welcome.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Barton. I just took a nice 10-minute walking tour of the parking lot. So I have that perspective to offer. I am directionally challenged, apparently, and could not distinguish between buildings A and B or entrances A and B. So I'm sorry I'm late. I am the Washington County District Attorney. I live in Sherwood. I've got 3 kids. So like many of you, I've got skin in the game, so to speak, because this is my community. Before I was elected as district attorney about a year ago, I spent the bulk of my career as a prosecutor, as a child abuse prosecutor, and I supervised that unit in our office, handled those cases myself. And in that capacity, we have what's known as a multidisciplinary team. Each county has that for child abuse related issues. I was the chair of that team. I'm on the governing board for a child abuse clinic called CARES Northwest, which is located adjacent to Randall Children's Hospital in Portland. And I have been serving for a number of years on a committee called the Child Abuse, it's a mouthful, Child Abuse Multidisciplinary Intervention Advisory Council for the Attorney General. Basically, it's all child abuse related issues. So Martha asked me to be part of this group, and whatever I can offer, I'm more than happy to do that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for doing the parking lot tour.
You're welcome.
And
Yes.
getting here.
At least it wasn't raining, right?
Good point. Ms.
Good
Calderon.
afternoon. I'm Miriam Calderon. I have the privilege of serving as the Early Learning System Director for Oregon. I really will be bringing the perspective, I think as Bobby said, of a listener. You know, this committee has a lot of really important work to do and recommendations to provide to the council that those of us sitting around the table from the Early Learning Division Office of Child Care will have the privilege and opportunity to implement. I'm going to get to talk a little bit more about that later on in the agenda, but I will just say that really bring the perspective of listener and resource and support. I may not be at every single meeting, but I assure you that we'll be working with my colleagues really behind the scenes to ensure that the time and effort that you're putting into this is valued and that we can put into practice. So thank you.
All right. And Renee, how about if we pop over to you? Thanks for getting here.
My name is Renee Holmes, and I am a family child care provider. I have been certified in my home for 19 years, and I am here just to kind of see how this can all work out for everybody, because it seems like it just kind of has issues on both sides sometimes. You know, whatever I can help and contribute.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's jump to the folks on the phone or the video. Thank you so much for being on camera if you have one. It's great to see you. Maybe we'll start with you. I think that's Kara.
Kara.
Right.
There we go. I'll unmute myself. Can you hear me okay?
Thank you.
Okay. My name is Kara Tachikawa. I'm the Executive Director of Inspire Early Learning Centers in Bend. That's why I'm not there with you today. I bring a child care center perspective, which others might have as well. And in the hope of full disclosure, like someone else said earlier, my facility is also on the safety portal for different compliance pieces that were found. I think the other perspective that I bring is I'm the only one that's not kind of more local to everyone over there in the Valley. So kind of looking at Central and Eastern Oregon, so I can talk maybe a little bit about that. I'm very passionate about what is on the safety portal, and so I want to really figure out a way that works for both parents and providers that gets to the best interests of all sides. So thank you.
Thanks, Kara. Maybe right below, I'm not sure if below is what you're seeing. Is that Shannon? Shannon? Oh, thank you, that's Shannon. Thanks.
Hi there, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Shannon Vandahai. I am Program Director of Child Care Resource and Referral for Marion, Polk, and Yamhill County. We're a program of community action, and I'm bringing the Child Care Resource and Referral Quality Improvement Specialist perspective to this, as well as we've also have worked with parents in the past as well for referrals. So that is what I'm bringing.
Great, thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.
Lisa, thank you.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry. So yes, I'm Lisa Matos, and I am a environmental health specialist with the Multnomah County Health Department. I'm a health inspector of probably over 300 child care centers and certified family homes. I do health, safety, and sanitation inspections. Been doing this for over 15 years. And also I'm involved with any communicable disease outbreak that may happen. So hopefully I'll be able to share and be a positive for you guys. Yes.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks. Reagan?
Hey, actually, I'm Lily Hogue. I'm the political director at Family Forward. Reagan has childcare responsibilities during this time, so I'll be taking over for her in this group. We are an advocacy organization that has existed for just on 10 years now, and we work on organizing mothers and other caregivers around care issues like childcare, paid family medical leave, and things that impact women's economic security and the well-being of families. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, Lily, and thanks for filling in for Reagan. I know it was sort of a last-minute piece, but we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And how about if we jump to? Oh.
I
think there's a couple more here.
Okay.
Lisa introduced herself.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Representative Lively.
Others on the phone.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear two people. Representative Lively, is that you on the phone?
Yes, I am. So this is John Lively. I'm state representative from Springfield. I serve on the Lane Early Learning Council. I was previously chair of the House Early Learning and Family Supports Committee, and I most recently have served on the Joint Student Success Committee.
Awesome. Thank you, Representative Lively, for being on the phone. He's also one of our strongest advocates in the legislature, just so everybody has that perspective on, he's a huge leader in early learning. So thank you for making time to join us today.
You bet. Thank you.
And who else is on the phone?
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. This is Stephanie Fortner. I am a parent to a 18-month-old in Clackamas County. Sorry I'm not able to be there. I was called away on business, but I will be there for all of the other committee meetings, and hopefully being on the phone for this one will work out all right.
And Stephanie, your child is in center-based care, correct?
Correct. She's in a center disability care.
Right. And you're in Arizona, I think.
At the moment, I'm in Tucson, yes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for figuring out how to call in while you're on business. Is there anybody else on the phone?
Hello, my name is Dina Lowry. I am a child safety manager for the Department of Human Services in Salem. And I manage a unit that administers child protective services throughout the state. And I just appreciate the opportunity to continue to build partnerships to ensure safety for children and families. I apologize for not being there in person. My schedule did not even allow me 15 minutes to get out of my office, let alone travel. So I will certainly commit to being there face-to-face in the future.
All right. Thank you, Dina. We appreciate that. Is there anyone else on the phone? Okay. If not, Andrea, welcome.
Hi.
Thanks for getting here.
It's fun getting here. Like, turned around even with the GPS. Yeah, I probably went like 3 circles.
Did you circle the parking lot like
Martin did? No, it's like, I was like, okay, well, keep on turning, going down this road, going down that road. I was like, where is this place? I made it. But I came all the way from Portland. It wasn't too bad.
So Andrea, you have a child who is in center-based care, correct?
Yes.
3-year-old?
Yes.
Active boy. Many of us can relate to that. So thanks for getting here.
Thank you.
Great. Well, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, how about if we, yes, let's introduce who else is in the room, even though they're not participants in the.
Hi, I'm Melanie Viceres. I'm with the Early Learning Division, and I'm the Communications Director.
Thanks for being here.
I'm Kristen Kiefer. I'm with the Early Learning Division, and I'm the Compliance Specialist.
Okay, thanks, Christian. And Jason.
Jason Sloan. I work in child care. I'll say I've listened. I work closely with Angela in our data team.
Awesome. Thank you. You know, one thing I think it's interesting to note is the number of people from the Office of Child Care, staff members who are here, and I think that just gives all of us a real sense of the priority and the importance that the division is taking this effort. So Thanks, Madam Director.
My colleague.
Yes. Great, all right. Okay, so in your packets, we thought we would start by just taking a quick look at the letter that Miriam and I received from Governor Brown about 2 months ago. And that, as I said earlier, that really served as the basis for the formation of this ad hoc committee. And I wanted to just point out a couple of pieces of that letter that I think are of primary importance. Obviously, she is very focused on making sure that families have access to the information they need to make choices about what child care they choose. So access to information is sort of a banner issue. She said she wanted us to lead a public process, and this is a very public process with, as you know, this is being recorded and online if people want to listen and join in. And then also she says towards the end of the letter, I expect the council to seek input from a variety of stakeholders, especially parents. And so I've actually met with all the parents who are on this committee to just emphasize with them the importance of their voice and their perspective, because they're really the people who need to use the portal to make decisions. So I think a lot of our work, and you'll see the agendas, are focused around the issues that the governor has asked us to address. So Martha, Bobby, and I, serving on the council together, recognize that we're looking to this group to come in with recommendations that will come to the council, and then the council will review them, deliberate, and make some policy decisions in response to this directive from the governor. So, any other comments on the governor's letter? Okay. So if you look, we'll look at the agenda, and I think each of us has it in front of us. We want to do a overview of the portal, and you received information from Angela. And I just want to thank Angela at this point for all the work you have done to prep for this meeting and give information to us so that we can have valuable and informed conversation. So thank you very much, Angela.
If I just may add about Angela. Angela is also a mom of Ari. Ari is 11 months now. She's very new with the Division of Early Learning, so she has hit the ground running, but it's a month 3, 2.5, okay. I'm rounding up, it feels like forever. And she utilized the child care safety portal as she was coming to transitioning to work at the state and looking for child care herself. So we're lucky to have Angela as the ELB and also being able to bring those perspectives to the committee and also hitting the ground running. Thank you. Thank you, Will.
All right, thanks, Angela. So we will be looking at the portal, reviewing. Miriam will take us through some of the background information, and then Angela and Jason are going to actually show us the portal up on the screen so that we can all have sort of a baseline of information. We'll look at the committee charge that Heidi will walk us through the roles and responsibilities. And then we'll talk about upcoming monthly meetings and topics that we'll be discussing. So today it's really that general broad overview so we all have a common foundation for future meetings. Any questions or reactions, excuse me, to the agenda? Okay, if not, then we will go to Miriam. Yes.
Thank you, Sue.
Background.
Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit, I'm going to provide some background around the portal, and then, as Sue said, Angela and Jason are going to kind of give you an overview for those of you who haven't had an opportunity opportunity to go through the portal. And again, I think we want to make sure both in these conversations and all the other conversations that we'll have in a committee, please wave your hand. There's different experience or maybe jargon or things that are used. So, you know, some of you, this is going to be like, oh yeah, I already know this. For some of you, it's going to be kind of new information. So definitely let us know if, you know, some of this is too fast or we're using a lot of sort of, you know, terms specific to child care context in our state and federally. But I want to start by, I think, understanding a little bit about the Child Care Safety Portal and how we got here by giving a little bit of context about the Early Learning Division and the Child Care Development Fund. So the Early Learning Division exists at the state. It was created about 6 years ago. The Office of Child Care is part of the Early Learning Division, and the ELD and the Office of Child Care have really two very important responsibilities for this committee to consider and at the state level. One is to administer and serve as the lead agency for the Child Care Development Fund. And this is a federal grant available to all states and territories, as well as a federal law for all states and territories to receive this fund to do a number of things to support working families, particularly low-income families having access to child care, as well as activities that ensure quality and safe care, and activities that support providers in providing quality and safe care. So think federal grants. We, as the Early Learning Division in the Office of Child Care, help to administer those funds and implement the policy requirements associated with that federal law here in the state of Oregon. So that's going to be important context for our role in both where we find ourselves to date on the portal and then the changes that we will make in the future. So let me just, I'll stop there, and you can see that in some of the Child Care Safety Portal background. What that means is that as we look at implementing some of the federal requirements associated with the Child Care Development Fund, we have had the responsibilities of implementing a number of changes that impact the child care in the state of Oregon associated with a new federal law in 2014. So this federal program, the Child Care Development Block Grant that I spoke of, has existed since the 90s. It was reauthorized in 2014, and some of what the federal government did is really raise the bar around requirements around health and safety. It increased the scope of providers that must be regulated by the state, and it had a number of new requirements around the information that is available to families and transparency to families, so they can make decisions about child care that meets their needs. So one of those requirements, we will refer to them, you'll hear probably often in this conversation, is the consumer education requirements. And if you had the chance to look at some of the background materials that Angela shared in advance, we've provided some of those federal requirements related to CCTF, the Child Care Development Fund, that have to do with consumer education. And that's really what we mean by information that's available to families. So any questions about that before I go on? So what were some of these consumer education requirements that really impacted and shaped the portal? The federal law said that the following information needed to be available online for families, and you can follow along in this background document. Our policies around who we license, who we monitor, inspections, background checks, and exclusion policies related to child care, information on the availability of child care providers, searchable by zip code, information that we may have at the division around the quality of child care. So states have some latitude around setting up frameworks for quality, and then voluntarily working with providers who volunteer to be part of child care quality efforts, including rating. And so if a state has such a system, making that available, provider-specific monitoring and inspection reports, which there's some background I want to share about that, so I'll come back to that. Aggregate number of deaths, serious injuries, and substantiated child abuse in child care settings each year for the past 3 years. Information about referrals to local child care resource and referral organizations, and directions on how to contact the lead agency, right, to better understand the information. So again, these are some of those federal requirements. We are going to continuously revisit these as we work through the different topics and agenda items, so you don't feel like you need to absorb all of this sort of information right now. But I think this will be really important, even this overview at a high level, really for you to know and take away from this conversation that there are some federal requirements that we cannot change, that we have to adhere to. We will be, in the different conversations we have, reminding you about those. And I think some of what we're interested in is, you know, your input and your recommendations on how we do more than that, or how well we might be doing with meeting some of those requirements.
So, Miriam, just one comment on the quality of child care providers. That's for us, for Oregon, it's really SPARK, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Which I'm guessing many of you are familiar with, especially the providers.
Yes.
But why don't you, somebody, just do a quick snapshot on SPARK?
Sure, absolutely. Don, do you want to say anything about SPARK?
Yeah, so SPARK is Oregon's version of the quality rating and improvement system to kind of identify where a provider goes and documents their practices, their best practices, and the quality. It's reviewed, and then they're given a star rating, and then that's the communication to families about the quality of care that's in that facility.
Right, whether different programs are meeting those best practices.
Yeah. And it's completely voluntary. So because there's not a star, that doesn't mean it's not there. It's a voluntary program.
And it's up to 5-star.
Yeah.
5-star program.
So prior to implementing this new federal law change, the state was meeting some of these requirements in a variety of different ways, different websites, and not all online, right? So I think that that's sort of important to note. And so since that time, we've been working at the Early Learning Division and the Office of Child Care on a number of efforts to bring us into compliance with meeting all of these requirements, particularly the online pieces. And I want to stress that because I think a lot of the what was important about the conversation at the federal level about this is really recognizing that a number of states relied on hotlines or different, services, calling, voicemails, calling back information. So some of this information you could get, it was available, but it wasn't maybe that easy to know that it was available. It required maybe, talking and connecting with somebody online. We still operate at the Office of Child Care a 1-800 number that is always a resource for families. We encourage families to continue to use that resource, but I think some of the debate at the federal level was, our families now really are wanting more information quick and at their fingertips and online, available at all hours, not necessarily the hours where a hotline is staffed. And so I think that was some of the underpinnings of really making this information online more, the idea being it will be more accessible and searchable. I want to insert a joke here that, I think also too, thinking about younger generation and the shifts of more growing up with technology. I have, for example, a little sister. She's actually graduating from college tomorrow. I'm actually worried about her because she doesn't like to talk to people. She has to do everything online. I think that, that's just really important to kind of keep into the room. I think we're really hoping to learn from all of you, really, as we put things online. How do we put it online with the right kind of context and accuracy, right? So that it is as understandable and easy to access as when you're talking to a live person. I think that's what some of our challenges have been. But so we launched the portal, the Child Care Safety Portal, in 2017, beginning to implement and meet some of these requirements. And I think what's important to understand is that we meet them in a variety of ways. So even when we see Child Care Safety Portal and when Angela and Jason kind of walk you through, you'll say that a lot of this information is, the portal really means probably a number of different websites, especially as you think about how we meet these requirements. It's sort of not all in one place. So you're gonna see a facility search tool. You're gonna see different web pages in terms of how you'll find this information. I think the other important thing for you to know right now is that we have not met all of these requirements sort of to date, right? So we are operating under a waiver from the Administration for Children and Families, Office of Child Care, and have received additional time being by September 30th, 2019, to meet the requirement of uploading our monitoring visit reports, so the licensing specialist monitoring visits. You can see from the background document that Angela provided that's in your packet, CCDF Consumer Education Website Requirements Summary. So it looks like this, that when you get to posting, monitoring, and inspection reports, so again, that requirement that we will be, that we're still working to meet, there is a lot to consider there, right? You know, and so we will, in our first meeting, our next topic, our next meeting in June, I think, be revisiting kind of some of the more specifics here about posting and monitoring inspection reports. So all of that will be really relevant to your topic. I'm not going to go into those details right now because we're going to revisit them. And I also want to note that you all have, we will have access, I think Angela has shared with you, with experts in the federal requirements, including around these monitoring and inspection reports and any of the requirements that I outlined. I just outlined. You have some experts in the room, but we also have experts at the federal level that understand the intention and the requirements in the federal law that can serve as a resource as we have these conversations and we deliberate. So we, coming back to this, we launched this portal. And since we've launched, we have had a real desire and an interest in going farther, really exceeding the CCDF consumer education requirements, but I think have faced a number of challenges. The accuracy of the data, how far we go back, some of the changes that we want to make, like posting the monitoring and inspection reports, being linked to a new data system that we are still finishing up and building. And so those are really, I think, kind of some IT challenges. We need a new and different data system for licensing for us to be able to do some of the things that we want to do to come into full compliance. We have a lot of questions about, and you see we have our partner agencies here represented, you know, law enforcement, child welfare, what kinds of information is appropriate to share that we learn from other partnering agencies. It's really kind of their data. We have also some questions about what is confusing to families. I feel like I'm venturing into a little bit of the charge piece, but we have launched, we have erred on the side of exceeding the federal requirements, and as Sue talked about, with this, with the charge from the governor, we have this opportunity to take a step back now and really look at, you know, whether or not what we are currently doing is clear, is accessible, is understandable, and is meeting the needs of families and providers. So that's where we find ourselves right now with some experience since 2017 of having launched this system and really looking to this committee to help us in coming into full compliance, as well as really operating what we hope to be an excellent child care safety portal and online tool that is useful for families and fair to providers.
All right, so yes, questions, Bobby?
I'm confused. We have all these federal requirements. They're not they don't sound all to me like safety portal. So the federal requirements are larger, am I correct?
Well, they're the consumer education requirements that were outlined in the law. And so I think when we say, and Angela and Jason can talk about this, when we say portal, I think part of what we need to arrive at is to think about portal more comprehensively.
Oh, and so you are thinking that safety portal is R&R referrals and everything, Spark ratings, that all of that is safety portal?
I think we have to be focused on meeting these requirements and the variety of ways we will do them. So as you'll see when we start to walk through, some of these things may live on other web pages. I think over time, we want a more coherent strategy so it doesn't feel like you go into 5 different pages in the portal. And I don't know that from a language perspective, we would necessarily call that portal, right? We might call that consumer education for families. But when we think about the portal, some of these things that have to do very specifically with information around child care safety, we may want to have better defined. This is part of the portal, and that's really what the scope of this committee will be. But we recognize that these things have to be better coordinated, right? So when families are looking for safety information, and again, I think this is some of what may come up in our committee conversations, how you might distinguish between safety information versus information about quality, is probably more nuanced for us than it would be for a parent who's trying to get information about childcare in their community.
Thank you.
So how about if we, was there another question? How about if we start, let's take a look at the portal, and maybe that'll help answer this question about what's on the portal, what's available elsewhere for education. And will people on the phone be able to see what's on the screen, Jason?
Yeah. If they're on a computer, if they're just on the phone.
Okay. So those of you who are on the phone, if you are at a computer, you should be able to see the screen that Jason is pulling up.
If they've joined the webinar on a computer, you'll be able to see the screen.
Okay, great.
Are you able to see? Are you sharing your screen?
Does anybody know how the lights in this room work? Can we drop any of the lights and have all of the lights?
So it should be showing us.
What happens Oh, no. Yeah.
If you do that, everyone pulls the switch.
Yeah, I think it might be all or nothing.
Okay, we'll see if we can see the portal with the lights on.
There. Is that it?
You can see it on the line, I'm not sure on the line. It's there, but I don't think it's on the, I believe they can see it if they're on the web right now. And no one.
Are people on the phone that are on a computer able to see the child care safety portal?
Yes.
I can see it. Great, thank you.
Yep.
I can't see it here.
Right. So while we're trying to pull this up, I don't know.
Were people able to look at it prior via the information in the email that was sent out on Friday?
to you now.
Give us just a minute.
Okay. So Dawn, can you talk a little bit for us about about the portal, but also other places where parents get information about childcare?
Yeah, certainly. So for kind of the compliance part, that's where the child care safety portal comes from. Families can also call 211 to get information, child care referral, and that's the general place where that happens right now. There's also a place within the teaching research website that's connected to the child care resource and referral database that also gives you some information in terms of the quality of care. It can do some searching there as well. So you can search on there, you can call 211 for that information to find care.
Yeah, Jerry.
A couple of you said you're on the portal now because something occurred. If something doesn't occur, are you not on the portal, or how does that work?
All licensed providers are on the child care safety portal.
Okay, so whether something occurred, there you go. Understood.
Yeah.
Great. We are still going to have that top banner be removed. So I'm not sure how.
Maybe ask people to turn off their cameras for a minute.
Yeah, can the folks that are sharing webcams stop showing them temporarily, and that hopefully will make the screen bigger.
Angela, you can also drag your screen with that gray bar. You can drag that up if that helps as well.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. Thanks, Alyssa. There's some technical glitch happening between Jason and I both being presenters, so that gray bar wasn't on my screen. It was on Jason's, I think. But we made it.
Okay, let's go.
Let's go. And Jason, feel free to jump in at any time with any insight. So this is how I would let's see, I'm going to start from scratch. So he's high, the early, safety portal. We'll give you this. And then here we are. This is what is known as the Child Care Safety Portal webpage. And you'll notice up at the bottom, excuse me, up at the top, that there are several other places that you can navigate to. Oh my gosh, allergies, I think. That you can navigate to within the portal system, or sorry, within the consumer education website of the Early Learning Division. So for our purposes, if you Google Early Learning Division Safety Portal, it takes you directly to this webpage. And on this webpage is where we meet a lot of the CPDF requirements that Miriam mentioned just now. So on this webpage, it will give you some information about what is available here and why it's here. So the web portal is a resource for Oregon residents to get information about the safety, health, and quality of licensed child care facilities. Its searchable content includes facility status, a summary of the state's inspection of the facility, complaint information, enforcement activity, and details about injuries and deaths that have occurred at the facility. So that's what that top paragraph says. And so this is the webpage that houses, if you scroll down, there's more information about background regarding
what's available here, background about the child care, the Office of Child Care, and what it is that we're trying to provide. Down here is where you can get where any user can get feedback on the portal itself. And this button up here is where it will take you to the search tool, which allows you to find individual facility histories. But before we go there, I want to also point out that this portal webpage includes, I don't have my mouse, so forgive me, includes these other areas of information. So this is where anybody can make a complaint about child care provider home or child care centers. There's an online complaint form. There is a way to request compliance history, a full compliance history. A lot of this, as Miriam actually covered in her presentation about the background. Here's where information about emergency suspensions that have happened is available. This is where serious injuries are available. And I'm going fast just because this is meant to be a high-level overview, and I want to leave a lot of time for questions. So make note of any questions.
Or maybe they can just interrupt or
Yeah,
stop
or
you,
interrupt
Angela,
anything popping up.
go through.
Questions?
So I have a question. This is Representative Lively. So as you're flipping through this, I had read something earlier about information being updated on Tuesdays, or I don't remember what it was, but as I looked at the information in the page you just on, it talks about October 2018. So I'm trying to understand, of all this information that's on here, how current or how often does it change? See, that says, okay, I see, last updated May 3rd, but it is, I understand there'd be older information available, but any newer information gets entered every week or every month?
Every week there's a data upload that happens from our licensing system that fed into the facility search tool. And this is updated manually by Office of Child Care staff. So this means that there hasn't been an emergency suspension since May 3rd, 2019.
Okay.
So that's an excellent question.
And that's just data. So you have the ability to do that quickly. Whatever the data is on another system can just be uploaded to this system.
Yeah. Representative Lively, this is Miriam. I don't think Jason, if you want to weigh in here, but the different reports that Angela's covered right now, these are done manually by staff in the Office of Child Care. And these are done when they're, I think, daily, or when there is, in the case of emergency suspension, that would be updated after an emergency suspension took place, which, does not happen daily. Anything you want to add, Jason?
No, these pages here are updated manually by staff as needed throughout the month. The weekly update, as Angela said, is on the search tool that we'll be looking at shortly, and that's straight from our data system.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
And I think Representative Lively, that is where that banner of when the information is uploaded, I think that's where we'll see that in just a second.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Question?
Yeah, question here?
Yes. Was someone else going to speak, or? It's hard to tell in the dark.
Yeah, sorry for that. We can't see the screen with the lights on.
I just ran a search on my smartphone of a child care provider under the Child Care Safety Portal, and it looked to me like the results that came up, contained injury logs, child fatalities, emergency suspension. It contained all those pieces in the report. Is that true?
Yeah, I think you guys are really good and being very proactive, which is fantastic. And part of what we want to do is make the connection between the information on this webpage and what you can find in that facility search history.
Yeah.
When you're looking at it as individuals, that those items that you mentioned are available there as well. And the reason why I want to make sure people understand that there's two areas where the questions that are going to be put before this group relate to both what's in this section and what you can see in the actual facilities history. And so I wanted to make sure people were aware that this is relevant to this group.
in these sections. Some of these sections are very relevant to the topics we're going to discuss, as well as, in a minute, I'm going to take us to an individual facility search tool, and you can confirm that that matches what you're thinking. Is that okay?
Okay, so just to make sure I'm tracking, it's put another way, the column on the right, there's a list of different types of information. Are all of those types of information available if you run a search in the child care safety portal of a facility or an individual provider?
In some fashion, yes, the level of detail may be different.
Okay, thank you.
There may be more detail in these pages and then vice versa, depending on the topic. And so I think that relates very directly to some of the topics for this committee. Thank you. Yeah.
Angela, another question from Chief Moore.
You may have had it up earlier, and you may have answered this. Who enters injury information? That's the first part. What are the requirements if the state enters it, for instance? What are the requirements for reporting that? And what level of injury or, I mean, I thought I saw a whole list of things there a moment ago, is it self-reporting? I guess that's my question.
I will hand it over to Amy. So there's rules in all of our sets of licensed childcare about reporting injuries that meet the definition here. They have to report them within, I believe it's 5 days. And so it is a self-report. If they fail to report it, then that would be a non-compliance against the program if it was reported to us some other way.
Okay.
And then does it also happen? Yes, and then we conduct, when we do get a report on a serious injury, we do conduct a visit to problem solve with them, see if there were any compliance issues, see what prevention needs to take place so that type of injury doesn't happen again.
Okay. And I couldn't read them all, and I see we have the blue screen of death, so it doesn't matter.
And now we're truly in the dark.
This isn't bumps and bruises that little kids get. These are significant injuries?
Right. So stitches, broken bones, concussions, head injuries.
Okay,
that
thanks.
are significant.
So on the portal, we identify serious injuries and no other injuries. So anything on the portal is reflective of a serious injury, not a bump or
Correct.
or
I
cut
just
lip.
couldn't see all the things.
Well, I don't know that. I'm asking.
Okay.
Yeah, in that report. Yeah.
Yes. There's actually 2 reports. Because, the rule changed last September, so there was a different definition of what had to be reported to us prior to September 30th last year. And Jason and Angela might be able to talk more about how the pre-September 30th show up versus post-September 30th.
Pre-September 30th of 2018.
Right. September 30th, the rules changed to make this list more reflective of kind of the federal intent and other states' practices. Prior to September 30th, what child care providers had to report was any injuries that resulted in any sort of medical care. And we know a lot of parents take children as a precautionary measure where there wasn't necessarily an injury that happened, but they want to go check it out just to make sure. And so we made the list a little bit more explicit about what needed to be reported and followed up on this.
So did you remove the ones where a parent just goes and gets them checked, or did you add them? Okay.
Yes, we removed that if they're going for precautionary measures.
You removed it from the portal?
No, in the rules, the rule change.
Okay.
That's what I was saying that Angela and Jason might be able to speak a little bit more of about how those pre-September 30th show up.
I think what you're seeing here, what this conversation is reflecting of is we're looking at one part of the portal right now, which is a lot of these we call sort of our term in-house is reports, right? And these map really closely to some of what I was describing are the federal requirements. So we post these and update these daily and have these sort of reports, aggregate, as you remember I talked about here, aggregate number of serious injuries, substantiated abuse. You're seeing those here in the reports that Angela just went over. When we get this back up and running, we're going to go to a facility search tool, and it's the question of, I'm sorry, the representative from AFSCME asked as well. I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
It's Meg.
Meg, thank you, Meg. That Meg brought up too, you're going to see the compliance history, which is going to pick up much of this information, currently not maybe as detailed when we go into the facility search tool. So, you know, if you typed in kind of Miriam's child time, you would also see a lot of records from visits that would be associated with some of the reports that would show up in this sort of aggregate reporting part of the portal, which we were just looking at. Does that make sense?
I have a question. So I actually pulled it up on my computer, and so what I hear you to say is there's two parts of the portal.
Yes.
There's the part that's more aggregate, less facility specific, and that will be on the right-hand side of the webpage.
Yeah.
You can view these aggregate reports, and then there's the part where you can essentially zero in on a particular child care provider. And maybe it's just a verbiage confusion, but it says, as I'm looking at the webpage, the child care provider portion says open the child care safety portal. But you're telling me that that's not, there's two child care.
Right, or the whole thing is a portal.
You're not actually opening the portal, you're already there.
You're already there, exactly.
Okay.
We probably need some kind of language change to say facility search tool or something like that.
All right, that just confused me for a bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for that, Kevin.
No,
Nova, I think.
that's the kind of thing that I think should go up on a parking lot.
Yeah.
As we identify clarifications like that, I think this is going to be really helpful. Yeah.
Can you clarify what
So the confusion is that you're already on the portal and it says go to the portal.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's two ways to get there. You can zero in on a particular facility, or you can be more in the aggregate. And both are in the portal. But this makes it look like the portal's only where it says open the portal, the button that you click on. But really, it's not. That's not the portal. The portal is either
The portal is
door number one
both.
or door number two.
Well, it's both. Yeah.
Door number one and door number two.
Door number one and door number two, right.
Is this committee going to be able to add things such as like under injuries that doesn't actually clarify what if multiple injuries happened, if the provider was at fault or if they fell off the monkey bars, was it child abuse or, an accident, where my digger is on the fatalities one because we had a SIDS incident at our daycare, but anyone that goes on there is just going to see that a baby died there. It doesn't say how, why, was the provider at fault, things like that. So, I mean, that is something that I think anybody would want to know, and, just slight more detail, and I think that the categories would make a lot more sense to people.
Yeah, sure. Oh, okay, guys. Just really quickly, Nova, I just wanted to say, yes, absolutely. That is our next topic, and that is very directly related to an area that I said we're currently not meeting right now, which is that it's sort of posting the monitoring inspection reports. That's going to get to a level of detail. Also in next month's topic, we're going to specifically address kind of provider responses and some of the other context around the compliance history. So thank you for that. I know you wanted to chime in. Renee's also been waiting, and I'm not the facilitator. Heidi is.
And then we're going to take a break after we have these two questions so they can switch computers around so we can get our screen back.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I just wanted to go off what she said, like as a parent using this portal. And if I was looking for childcare for my son and I saw that, I would
never go there.
I would not even, because I would want to know, like, more in depth, like, what happened? Why did the child die? Things like that. So those are kind of like red flags.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that was mine also, because I have one injury on there, and it just says injury, and I didn't even know it was on there. But the child ran to cell and infested his lip. He needed one stitch because he kept licking, and it kept bleeding over again. And so it's not that I didn't think that was serious, but because we went to urgent care and got the one stitch, it's on there forever. And almost every child, I think, is going to have a busted lip, at least once.
So somehow defining, quantifying, getting some descriptors around this on the portal will probably be a.
Yeah, that exact, one of the top months will be included as a very important topic, is what level of detail should be included in an injury, for example, on the portal.
And this is Shannon from CCR&R, and it's a fine line, and it's that line that's sort of where the discussion needs to happen too, and that's going to be a hard discussion.
Yeah, you're right. Sure. Meg, did you have another comment?
Oh, I was just, this is actually from my perspective as a parent a few years ago looking up, daycare facilities. I know because I'm a lawyer that I click into like all these different places, I can find an incident report that matches a listing, but I think it's important just to make things simple. So if you see injury, you can click on the word injury and get the information about it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Meg. Okay, we are going to take a break and see what kind of wonderful treats we have back here, and then Jason and Angela are going to probably get a more informative visual up for us.
Yeah. So how about till about 4:25, I think? About 15 minutes?
How about 4:20?
4:20?
Let's
get going.
Yeah.
For the people on the phone, we'll go ahead and mute the line so you don't hear all of the chatter. We'll be back at 4:20. Sorry. Thanks, Donna.
Got it.
I better remember our phone friends.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Hello, this is Eva. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi, Eva.
Can you hear us?
Yes, thank you. Sorry I'm so late.
We just took a break. We're taking our break, and then we're coming back together.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, folks on the phone, welcome back. We now have the child care portal, the website back up and working, and we're gonna get going again.
Yes. So I asked Jason and Angela if they could sort of go back to where we were in our conversation and explain, and it's what Kevin kind of brought up. So it seems as if there are two portals or two aspects to the portal. So Jason, maybe you can jump in and help explain this piece to us.
Here comes the light.
Sure. Okay, so there's our web-based child care safety portal, which is these several reports here. So they currently show a little bit more detail than we're able to show in the search tool portal. So over time, we need to think about when you hear safety portal, these web reports here, then when you hear search tool, that's going to be the tool we look at where we get down to the more provider info we can search through. So the way we have to develop some, not really interesting with some state contract stuff, some of these are stopgaps until we discuss things here policy-wise, and then when we can get them into our contract for our vendors to put into the search tool. So there is a distinction. So we're going to try to call the safety portal here on the web, and then the search tool is what we're going to look at in a little bit, where we can get down to every provider and search individually, if that helps at all. But if not, I can try to clarify some more on that.
Well, I do have a question. And so this committee is going to be working with both of those aspects. Is this correct?
Yeah. And let's
Yes.
Okay.
I can click into the portal real quick.
Yeah.
So there is a child care there's going to be a child care safety portal, and then an area which is just child care providers, or do we have to, should we be renaming? I'm confused.
We can set, I would suggest we set, by the end of this, so we can all stay clear through this process, we should I think I would recommend agreeing upon some terms. But the idea is, in order to meet the minimum federal requirements, both things have to exist for now, right? So some of the ways we meet for example, the aggregate report requirements is on this part, right? And the way we meet some of the other requirements around compliance history is through the facility search tool. So both right now are necessary and required to meet the federal requirements. And part of what, we don't want to make any changes to that until this committee makes some policy decisions. And as I think Jason was alluding to, then there will be the work, to work with our vendor, some of the changes we hope to make. This has already come up related to posting different reports. Licensing specialist reports are also, will require more work from our vendor.
So just to be clear, I think what I'm hearing is that there's the portal, child care safety portal, and another group of information is the facility search tool. Correct?
Yes, I think that's a good way to think about it right now, because they're two separate tools, all trying to meet the same goal.
Okay.
To meet all these different requirements to assist parents.
Does that make sense to people for now? Part of what we're going to be talking about at a future meeting, I know.
I think it makes sense. I just think it's very confusing the way it's laid out on because it says portal on the right and it says portal on the left.
Yep.
Those are two different things.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a labeling issue.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Okay. Okay, good. Yes, Meg.
Suggestion, I think it would be really helpful to have kind of a map of the data and to understand the universe of what exists. Does that make sense? And maybe with labels, and so we can all refer to things by the same name.
So, yes.
And what we have been doing internally, I thought that I love the suggestion. I just wonder how to do it in a way that would be helpful and not overly detailed, because there's a lot of information within each of those tabs. But I think we can actually do a simplified
Something high level,
yeah, something really high level. But what we have been doing internally is speaking about this piece of the portal is really about what's housed in the portal web page. So think of this right here is what's housed in the web page, what can be found here. And then
clicking into that blue button takes you to the search tool, which is the portal search tool, which is where you look at, where you see where you can find an individual facility's history.
Okay.
And so you can search for what would be a good one to search for?
Lad and Lassie.
Andrea's.
Lad and Lassie.
How do you,
So you would just go to facility name and you would just put in Lad and Lassie, like LADD, and then space in, and another space and Lassie.
what's the zip code?
97236. But you could do either or. You could just put in a zip code and look up providers that way, or you could actually put in a name and look them up that way too. But if it doesn't come up, then sometimes you have to maybe type in.
You have an extra space in there. You just try that. While you're doing that, can I ask a question? The provider types, is one of the provider types actually illegal care facilities?
Is one of the provider types illegal care? So can you see what you mean by provider type?
It's just,
In the drop
Is that an option?
I'm looking at it right now. If you hit the drop down, it's got all these different provider types, and one of them is labeled illegal care facility.
That's an other facility. That's the OS. So right now, the portal is pulling up information if we have it. Means we've had to have received a complaint, or we have, gone out on some kind of visit. There would be more information about that provider, but that certainly isn't, that doesn't mean that the universe of providers who are, I guess how I want to say it, if somebody is providing illegal care and you don't see them here, that doesn't mean anything. The only reason that they would be there is because we somehow might know about them. That's actually one of the issues that this committee will weigh in on, is the scope, which providers should be, have information included on the portal or not. Okay.
You're registered or certified. I know one of the deaths we read about involved the providers had their license revoked, and so I'm imagining their information might be included as an unauthorized or an illegal center.
They're just pretending to be licensed,
They
basically.
closed and then they reopened, but without a license.
Are those terms, when we go up to where you have to click the type of provider, are those terms on it? Like, what does it mean to be licensed? What does it mean to be registered? Are they on it on the website already?
Yes.
They are. The definition?
They are.
So registered family. License, but different types, like.
And this is something that we're actually going to talk about next meeting, right, in June, are the types of care.
Yeah, somewhat. We have a handout today on that.
On the types of care.
Longer. I just have a follow-up question on what Meg said. If a program was closed for non-compliance and reopened, would they show on the portal at all? They're operating what? If you let them open and not be licensed?
No, we wouldn't let them.
If they were closed, they reopened, that would create a new license, so therefore a new record.
And there would be no relationship between the two. So they lose all their history. Okay, this should go on to be discussed.
You can look them up as providers though, can't you? Just by provider name, and then when any and all things be under that one. But of course, maybe not parents would know to do that.
Right, that's right, Nova.
Okay, so where are we in this? I don't.
This is what we, is this is what we'll call the facility search tool, the portal search tool. And this is where you would find individual licensing history. And we tried to find LAD.
We had it up there.
So it's LADD and then a space and then the letter N and then a space and LASSIE.
Yeah, it was up there in a list.
I'm surprised it's not.
Yep. Actually, this is probably a really good moment to point out that there are a lot of the kind of usability of the tool. Like I had an incident where a couple months ago when I was pulling up a facility, I didn't know that there was an apostrophe sort of in the title, and therefore I was getting, you know, a different facility. So there are a lot of issues with usability that we know needs to be improved upon. That is part of the process that we'll be undertaking. We'll do, you know, focus groups with parents. We'll be getting at a lot of what is going to make this more user-friendly. I know somebody's pointed out to me it'd be nice to have a back button. I think, Bobby, you know, when you're searching, those types of things. So those are all really important. They're going to come up in our conversation. We're going to have Heidi document them, facilitate them. There's probably things that you're going to generate as a group that that's why, you know, it's important for Jason to be here and be hearing those things as they're being discussed. We're going to parking lot them, though, because they're going to be great ideas that come up, but we really want to make sure we've got a lot of policy decisions to make and giving you all the kind of information that we need. So the scope isn't going to go in depth into, you know, how do we present this information and make it easier?
Okay, so I don't know that at this point we want to deep dive on Latin Lassie or anything else, right?
I think we should just point out what is available in that bar, in that band there at the top.
Yeah, so every facility's history includes this banner at the top, and then it will also include any inspection dates. This is one area that we have to come into compliance with CCDF. When Miriam introduced the background area, or the background of this committee, this is one of the areas that she mentioned we are on a waiver and we are needing to be in compliance with showing more information for these visits by September 30th of this year.
Because there have been more visits than are showing up there, because that's 10 and 9.
Yeah, this isn't probably the best example to the time frames, because currently valid complaints show for 10 years. In valid non-compliances show for 10 years before they drop off. Unable to substantiate complaint findings show for 2 years. And so you'll see more detail if we find the more, Angela's pulling one up, I know has some complaint findings you would see. But there are time frames that we currently show.
That facility wasn't currently active that was pulled up, so it had all this information on an active record.
Which is also something to be discussed with this group, and how long do we, how far back do we show a facility's history? Because CCDF requirements are that we show 3 years worth of information, and we are currently showing 10 years of information in the facility history.
Got it.
And that, as Tammy mentioned, that particular facility was closed, which is another question before this group is, do we show facility history information for licenses that are no longer active?
I don't think it matters.
Yeah. So, sorry, when you were looking at Vlad and Lassie, it's actually just 1D. But on here, it does say that they have 3 entries, but it doesn't list any reports with regards to what those entries were.
Right,
So,
that's why it's that.
yeah. But it talks about a report from Head Life in 2011, so, yeah, that's the only thing.
Yeah, so currently, the details of serious injuries are housed in the webpage portion. And so,
Right, doesn't it?
because it is a report and then also an aggregate.
If you find that the daycare you're looking at has 3 serious injuries, you have to jump back to the aggregate report, find that daycare in the aggregate report.
Is there a way that could be aligned? Because I mean, I don't think I would necessarily, I would go through that.
There's already somebody that's putting it in individually, so they could just like add a little asterisk, like broken arm, fell off a monkey bar, right or not.
For the group coming up in the month as well, what level of detail in a facility's history do we have available around serious injuries?
Yeah, as a parent, I didn't even know that. Sorry, I didn't even know that. Like, it would have been nice to know that extra bit of information or how to access it. Yeah.
The question is, though, that I didn't hear the answer to is, why does the parent have to leave this site to find out more information? Is that Jason, is that the programming is just not done yet, or is that on purpose?
No, in the initial build, it wasn't one of the initial requirements. It's been an enhancement that's been talked about for a long time. But currently, it just shows the aggregate numbers. That was the initial requirement from the feds on that. And that's why we've supplemented it here until the decision's made at a group like this, if we want to add that into the history so it's easier to see. That's a decision that we were expecting to come here, I believe.
I mean, if you look at it like that, second person found, say, kids fell or tripped. Like, their injuries at your daycare, the three of them could be something very minor, or it could be something really that you would be concerned about, and it doesn't give you, I mean, at the very least, there could be like a rating of like, it was a 1-star injury or it was a 5-star, it was a big deal or whatnot.
I'm just gonna.
Doesn't give you any information.
If you're at the search page, and you're zeroing in on a particular daycare, you find that there's injuries, you should be able to link or somehow find out what that is right there.
That's
Not
oh, yeah, right.
Nobody would even know that you could go back to on this other page.
You're just gonna
frankly,
click
I'm
another day.
trying to go back on the slide and lasting one, and I can't even find it on this aggregate list.
So the issue too on the aggregate list is, in October, we changed the definition of what a serious injury was, or injury that was required reporting. So we had to distinguish two separate reports here, one post 1030, which is the new serious definition injury, and then we showed the previous 10 years, which was a different definition of injury that they had to report at that time. Jamie might be able to describe that better than I can. Okay.
Trying to get the screen back up.
Yeah, but there's two reports here, so that's even a little bit more confusing on this screen. One post pre-1015, 18, and one after.
So if we're making a list of stuff to change,
Yeah.
I think, it sounds like we are, I can't see what's there, but this clearly needs to be more user-friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
We've had that on our internal.
I think the whole idea of unlinked search and reports, not linked, it's broader than question than just this injuries. It's just kind of like, why would you have that column over there and then the search and they're not linked? So I think it's a more broad kind of systemic, and I'm guessing it's money programming, but we should, it's broader than injury. Like what else?
Right, it's that whole column.
That whole pile up.
Exactly.
Why wouldn't it all be linked if I wanted to know it?
Okay, what else do we need to know background-wise, Angela and Jason?
I think we've covered the primary elements, that really just to be familiar with the different types of information that are there, and this group has come up with a lot of great suggestions already, but to just know that. All right, lights back on, they're coming. Okay.
Thank you.
Just know that as we talk about these topics, to keep in mind that, for example, the aggregated report here is a requirement that has to be there in that fashion aggregated. We need to provide some of this information here in this fashion, but that we also have questions about what level of detail related to some of these areas do we also have available in a facility search history. So we'll have an opportunity to dig a little deeper, because in some cases there's more background information that influences the difficulty with making some of these decisions that seem somewhat straightforward now. In some cases aren't as straightforward.
You know, I think it will be helpful, I'd love the committee's reaction to this, if staff can, as we start going through the topics in the next months, the next meetings, if you can come in with partly the map that Meg's talking about, I think, as far as information sites where it exists, but also put something together that gives us some guidance in saying, here are the options that we want you, the committee, to look at, and give us even a staff recommendation based on best practice in the other 49 states. You know, where should we be trying to head? And obviously, we want our portal to be way more user-friendly, as Kevin's pointing out. But I think we're going to need you to help us put some sidebars on this by coming in and just providing some guidance and recommendations.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Maybe this has already been covered, but where's the line between a child care facility and a preschool? So in other words, if I'm a parent and my kids are going to go to, you know, there's 3 or 4, and they're going to both have child care and education, is that something that would be included in the scope of the child care safety portal? Because it seems to apply only to licensed child care.
Well, like, we go to 5 years old, but, we go to 5 years old and we have a curriculum, so you would kind of consider us a preschool, but we're a child care facility.
Right, because I know there's some that are just more the traditional 2 hours a day preschool, right? And there's some that are.
They would be on.
8 hours a day.
If that was their.
Both preschool and child care.
It would still have to be a
It's
license.
all in the child care portal?
Yeah. So the programs that are very specific, like you're talking to, or that are less than 4 hours a day, that's a traditional preschool only without before and after care, those are not required to be licensed. So those they aren't regulated by us, and so they won't show up on there.
Except for some Head Start.
Okay, but that is a state legislative decision, and we're in an unusual state in the, that typically, if it's a center, whether it operates 2 hours a day or 10 hours a day, it's regulated, and it would be on the list. But in Oregon, we have this thing called, what are they called?
Recorded.
Recorded, and we know very little about them, and they're not regulated. But that's a legislative decision, and if we have opinions about that, I assume we could share them.
Representative Lively.
Yeah.
But
You got a legislator on.
Yeah, I mean, we could tell the legislators.
For the purposes of this committee, individuals and as a whole, you could, certainly address issues with any recommendation that you want to provide to legislators. But for the purposes of this committee, you'll have the opportunity to weigh on the policy decision of which providers. So as your question raises, there's some, we regulate some providers differently. Not all providers are regulated in the same manner. We have recorded programs. I think we're going to talk about that. Regulated subsidy providers. So the landscape in Oregon is complicated, right? In terms of some providers that are legally license exempt. So again, as Bobby said, they're not required under statute to be regulated. And we right now sometimes have information about these providers that's not the same information. So that's sort of what you'll have the opportunity to weigh in on with respect to this committee is just because we have some information on some providers that we don't license, should they be on the portal or not? No, it's actually a topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the answer to my question then is not all traditional preschools are going to be included in the portal.
I think I have a hard time with traditional preschool because I think to Nova's point, we would consider a child care facility a preschool, and in the field of early care and education, we use them interchangeably. So as you say, I think the best response is sort of some preschools, again, used interchangeably with child care. If they're serving 3 or 5-year-olds, will be here because they're licensed, and some may not be.
Okay, and licensing has to do with
Hey,
care.
this is Eva.
Health and safety largely, yes.
You want to jump in?
Eva.
Yeah, I don't know who was just talking, but I appreciate that frame for how to think about this. But yeah, so the way I've explained it in some committees is that all childcare is preschool and sometimes after school tutoring or before school and after school care or overnight care. And some preschools are also childcare, but not always. So it's kind of like a word logic problem.
Yeah.
But no matter what no matter what setting your child is in, when they are learning how to interact and have and getting social and emotional support, they are in a preschool. And if they're getting after school support, they're in after school care that provides that, tutoring and after school support.
I feel like our website should say that, there are places that are not licensed, and if they're not coming up on here, then you should check in to make sure that if you're looking for a licensed provider, then, and they're not coming up on here, then you need to figure out if they're licensed or not, because if you're looking for a licensed provider, and somebody offered you a preschool that's not, then I'd be concerned as a parent.
Yeah, yes, good point. Oh, boy, there's going to be a lot of information needed on this site. Okay, let's move off of the portal website, if that's okay with everybody for now. We'll see it again. Why don't we, is there anything we haven't covered that you want to talk about, Miriam, as far as the charge of this committee? I think we've all read it and have a sense of.
Yeah, I think the only thing I think to reiterate as a point is that clearly just through the exercise of walking through the portal, you've highlighted, again, going back to a lot of issues with clarity around language, choice of words, challenges with, I would say putting that in the bucket of usability. It's hard, why is some information here and not here? Why can't I link to it? Why isn't all, so again, we're going to continue to parking lot those issues. Where a lot of these issues is feedback we've already been getting, we've been documenting, we have a list of things that we want and improvements that we want to make so that this is less confusing to use. So I think when we get into the actual monthly topics that this committee is going to provide recommendations on, that's really where I think probably the best way to really clarify the charge. Where are we really looking for all of you to weigh a lot of the considerations that we've been weighing internally and really give us input. And so I love that the warm-up was starting with the perspectives that you bring, because you've all been carefully selected around these topics because your perspectives are all critical and valuable. I think Shannon said earlier, there is some fine lines here, and we really want to balance it all. And I think these principles that were in the committee charter are really important. I think we have to keep those as sort of a North Star. So when we get into some really sensitive topics about the way we work with district attorneys, the way we work with law enforcement, the way we work with DHS, for example, right, we're going to be balancing some of those issues with respect to what is information that's critical for families, right? We've talked already about what's fair to providers, what's informative and clear to parents. And so that's really the charge, is to hone in on these topics and make sure that you can deliver recommendations that have carefully deliberated around all of these considerations, thought about these principles, and can give something really actionable back to the council so that the early learning division can move to implement.
So let's look at the topics, because obviously we're already deep diving, and let's just take a look. Dawn was going to give us sort of an overview of coming attraction.
A pretty high level, and for people on the phone, we emailed it to the invite so that you have it if you're at a computer, and then everyone here will also have it electronically as well.
And everyone on the phone can get it off of their computers.
Yep.
Great.
So I must apologize. I have a joint student success committee meeting that starts in a few minutes, so I'm going to have to check out. I would like to say I'm not more confused than when we started. I'm not, But this has been I've appreciated the conversation, and I look forward to the work going forward.
Thank you, Representative Lively. We appreciate you being on this call.
Thank you.
Great. So I'll keep this pretty high level just to kind of identify the topics. I know that later in the agenda we're going to go a little bit more about June. So in June, we're going to be talking about licensing compliance history and how the portal should really represent the history of a program's compliance. And some of those questions have even come up today. So we'll be doing a whole meeting dedicated to really looking at what history should show. In July, with the scope of providers or the type of providers that should be on the portal, we'll have a discussion around information on non-licensed facilities, those including to possess a license, identified that are illegally operating. So we'll have a discussion around that topic. In August, we will have a discussion around how and when the Child Care Safety Portal makes available fatality information as part of a provider's history. And then in September, we'll have a discussion on child abuse information being made available and how and when that should be uploaded onto the Child Care Safety Portal. And then we have an October meeting to really kind of come together and finalize the recommendations that are coming out of the committee from the work of the previous month.
Awesome. Any comments on just sort of looking at the issues coming up in the next 6 months? Okay, if not, Dawn, how about drilling down a little bit on June?
Okay. So for June, you see there's some of the key questions that we'll be kind of asking to guide the policy recommendations. Is how many years of a facility's history should be represented on the portal. Right now we have 10 years. The federal requirements are 3, and so we'll be giving you a lot of information prior and kind of teeing up around where the different what the different requirements are and getting to a policy discussion on how many years and what types of findings should be posted on the portal.
One of the things you'll hear with respect to how far back we go is the farther back that we go, the less confidence we have in the accuracy of the data. So some of this information, the farther back we go means it wasn't, it's in sort of paper records that at some point were entered in and transferred into a system, right? There were different ways that we documented different sort of compliance activities or monitoring and inspections. So again, that's going to be a big consideration. The farther back we go, the less confidence we have in the accuracy of the data.
Another question is, should the portal display complaints that were found invalid or unable to substantiate? Federal requirements require valid findings. And then what guidelines should be given to child care providers regarding providers' responses that are made available, that are made available as part of a facility's history. And so those will be the topics in June, and I know that we're preparing information to send you out beforehand to kind of tee up for having those policy discussions.
So committee members, any thoughts about these 3 bullets and sort of the 3 questions, information that you're going to want in order to be able to discuss these intelligently? For me, one of the ones on the first bullet is, I think we need staff to tell us how many years back do you think we should go because we have relatively accurate information. Is it 5, 10, 3? But I don't think we have any way to say should it be 10 or 3 without having any idea of where's the accuracy line drawn.
Or the pros and cons.
Yeah, pros and cons.
What would the pros and cons of of more versus less B would be helpful.
Well, you would need two pros and cons lists, cons and pros for the parent and then one for the providers. So they would not always be the same.
Am I understanding you to say,
No, go ahead.
that the only rule on this comes from the federal guidelines? There's no state administrative rule or law. There's the only direction we have in terms of what's required is federal guideline, and that's a 3-year requirement. Is that the deal? So anything else would be voluntary on part of.
And it's not, and it's 3 years, not necessarily retroactively. Do you want to speak to that, Gina? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 years from the point of when you meet your federal requirements.
Oh, okay.
So it gives
You haven't
state
done yet
time.
because you have a waiver.
We have a waiver, but we need to have it by September 30th.
3 years going back from September 30th of 2019.
No, it's just moving forward.
Going forward.
Yeah.
So technically, you wouldn't have to include anything from past, starting this September.
So I think the additional question should go to whether it's 3, 5, 10, or whatever. Once you start getting accurate information, do we leave it or does it drop off?
So is it a rolling 3 years or 5 years or whatever?
Yeah.
That's a consideration that everybody should make.
Okay, so great. This is really helpful, I think, so that staff can come and sort of frame this up for us and give us a better sense of what the options are and the pros and cons. I think that's a really good suggestion.
Sorry, I don't mean to dominate, but
no.
I'm confused about this whole facility thing. So how many years of a facility history? The portal website says it applies to only licensed child care facilities. But when you click on it, it includes whatever this term, illegal or unlicensed care facilities. So if I'm a parent and I'm trying to figure out, I may not appreciate what is a preschool or what is not a preschool, or different people, it sounds like a different definition of what that is. So I just think just some definitional grounding for the website and what facilities we're talking about, that would be my first point of question. And then the second one is this phrase substantiate. Is that a defined term, what it means to substantiate? And is that different than founded, which I saw was used for our topics in September? Founded is a DHS term, I know. Substantiated is.
It's our definition of what when we go out on a regulatory issue, where was it invalid, were we unable to substantiate if it happened or not, or is it valid?
And that's different than founded or unfounded.
Yeah, those are our, but what we could bring is the definitions and, what leads us to those.
I feel like we're using different terms from different agencies that have some crossover, but maybe some differences too.
What I hear you saying, Kevin, is bring key terms pertinent to this conversation so that everybody can follow along and participate and have the same information. I think the other point to make is, for the purposes, I think, of June, we're going to be talking about kind of facility history, really assuming it will be easiest, and my colleagues should jump in here, it will be easiest to assume licensed facilities, those that we regulate, for the context of how far back we go and some of the decisions. When we get to July, we're going to actually discuss, do we include some of these other facilities that are not licensed, active facilities?
So you're saying June then will be focused on licensed facilities?
It's going to be easier to answer these questions, and then depending on the outcome of the conversation in July, we can have considerations for those other providers if we can meet sort of where the group landed in June.
I'm kind of surprised you have a drop down that's an illegal facility. I guess in my world, if it's illegal, it ain't working, it ain't happening.
I think it's like my neighbor Susie watches the neighborhood kids, and then something happened at neighbor Susie's house, and now she's an unlicensed, she's an illegal.
Is it more?
We're allowing them to be illegal.
They just are doing it, and they got caught.
We're doing illegal care.
Okay.
And so you could look up Susie's address and see if she's been cited before for conducting illegal care.
Okay.
But it is confusing, definitely. And so it's good to hear your
When you look at it, you think, well, this is illegal, but it's so really what you're doing is documenting something that happened at an illegal facility.
That's right. Yep. But if, we didn't get a complaint about it, or we didn't investigate it, it's not gonna be on the portal. It could still be illegal. It could still be happening.
I know that.
We don't know about it. That's why it's really confusing.
So, if you put unlicensed facility instead of illegal facility, then people would know.
Well, some people are unlicensed, but they're
But they're
DHS
legal.
registered, so like they are allowed to watch a certain amount of children because
Oh, you're
through
right.
DHS, but they're not.
Right, or their own kids.
So, right.
But what's really weird is if you just search for illegal facilities in your city, which I just did, you see a lot of facilities that are listed that are preschools or individuals. And then when you click on it and figure out, well, what is it they're doing that's illegal, it says, you know, no records found. So it's unclear why they're listed on a list of illegal facilities. This is maybe going down a rabbit hole.
No, but it is a problem that is July.
Yeah. Okay, I have a June.
Oh, yeah.
I think on pretty much all of them, pros and cons are helpful. So like on the provider responses and whether the licenser's name goes on, whether what you do about kids' names showing up. I mean, I'd like to hear pros and cons on pretty much all the decisions that we're going to face. And if you have no pros and cons, you could tell us, I mean, there's no best practice for us to share with you or something like that. And, you know, but, so I don't want to make your job harder. But it just, I assume there are pros and cons for, whether a licenser's name is going to show up.
Yeah. Well, and I think, was it Nova? Is it? I think she made a great point. There's pros and cons for the parents, and there's pros and cons for the facility.
Yeah.
I mean, you're.
And probably pros and cons for law enforcement.
Well, could be, yeah.
And this is Shannon, from the CCR&R. One of the kind of the big pieces too with the definitions is parents hear from maybe a friend, family, neighbor provider who is doing DHS, and that DHS provider says, well, I'm licensed with DHS. Well, they're not licensed, they're listed. And so, I mean, there's going to be always have this lingo issue with providers. And that is a tough thing. And as a CCR&R, we have to really be clear with them when we talk with them. No, you're not licensed, you're not certified, you're listed. You know, so it's that lingo too. Just talking with parents is going to be an issue. So definitions are really important.
So that's a really good point, Shannon, and we probably need to look at having definitions available on the portal. So,
Well, maybe
and I think there's a list that was created, I think even from the language group, because they were trying to come up with definitions for specific areas. And there's definitions in the rule books as well. So
Right. This is Eva. I was just going to jump in too. So all of the so the family, friend, and neighbor who take care of DHS kids are called regulated subsidy providers, and they have a definition in OAR, correct, Dawn? And then as do registered child care registered and then certified family providers, and then certified centers. They're all defined in rule.
okay, good. Well, this portal is going to be 540 pages long, but you'll be able to click on everything we're looking for.
I think that's right, Eva.
And I think this might sound like an appropriate time to hand out the types of care.
Great
That-
idea.
that's right.
Sure, Angela.
Because I think, Eva, you might be referencing some of the
And this is
information.
on the website?
I listed it in the materials for the, so I'm trying to remember how to get that. And it's also on the website. I popped it up a bit ago during the oral presentation. It definitely is on the ELD website. And I put it in the materials.
Okay.
This has all of ELD responsibility and DHS, or just ELD license?
It has all.
All, okay.
Thank you. Probably, why don't we do that in June?
Yes.
I think, because then it'll lead into that conversation. And just the other thing to keep in mind is, if we don't have enough already, part of what the direction is from both the feds but also the governor is that this is timely information. So I think we need to keep in mind as we go through these bullets, you know, how long does it take to have a complaint found invalid or unable to substantiate? Is that a week, a month, 6 months, a year? So I think it'll be important to give the committee a sense of what's going to be timely, this discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And I know
Can
you
I jump in real quick?
9 months?
Like 7 or 9. I think it was a very
long time.
Very long time. Mostly on the, not the DHS, but in the same building as, oh, you're not from Eugene,
CPS.
Yeah, CBS. The man in charge of our case, like everyone else, closed their case after all the test results came back and proved, which was 3 months, but he just didn't do his job very quickly. So I don't know what else information he was trying to get, since everyone else had already done their job. But yeah, like I was calling like every other day. Okay, what's up? Okay, what's up? Okay, what's up? And he just wouldn't answer my call or my emails or any such thing. So I mean, sometimes it takes a very long time, but not for any reason.
Okay.
That guy got fired, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I wanted to come back to the idea of pros and cons and the comment that Nova made about the different perspectives. So I think we will do our best. I think it's been discussed here to bring options forward and kind of pros and cons related to those options for consideration. But I think part of the discussion here and in arriving at recommendations is going to be you're bringing your perspective to the pros and cons. So I think we'll really try to stay kind of in a somewhat narrow lane of best practice, of information that you might have about a particular pro and con, but I think that's going to really need to be fleshed out with the group and with part of the conversation. So I think we can do options. I also don't want to, I think as with a group that I think is as engaged as this group is, I can imagine that another option could emerge out of some of the options that are brought forward. And so, we will do that work and come prepared for those and get you those in advance. But I want to stress that you're here because you bring different perspectives that we want to balance, right? And ultimately getting all of the considerations on the table, making sure that is a very informed discussion. And then, I'm sure we're going to talk about consensus a little bit, that then will lead to the kind of recommendations that the council will consider.
So do you want to talk about that?
Let's talk a little bit about process, kind of where we're going to go from here. You've got the topics. Today was really a day of sort of grounding in what is. So we did the portal overview, we understand the charge. Now let's look forward. We've got the topics we're ahead of us, some of the key questions. Just want to share briefly, maybe have you turn to the roles and responsibilities. Just to touch briefly on sort of who is here, who's part of our work together, that's here to support you at II.Committee Charge. So Sue serves as the committee chair, and she's really leading the planning and the committee meetings, and is supporting all of your participation in any way she can, I know. And will be part of presenting the final recommendation to the Early Learning Council. And then myself as a facilitator, I'm really here to listen, to chart, to keep us moving along, to keep us on track, and to adjust as I'm listening to what you're saying the needs are, in partnership with Sue and the staff. And also really work to support leading us to a consensus, so a process that we all come to agreement around the recommendation. For you all as committee participants, as voting members, you're as Miriam and Sue echoed, your perspective is what's so important
and essential to this conversation. So bringing your perspective, your information, your insights on topics being discussed so that we can come to a consensus on those recommendations. And then committee participants who are non-voting, this is really the early learning council members in the room and the early learning division staff in the room and any other state employees, I believe. We've got ELD state employees are here to provide information and insights on the topics we're discussing, to help plan future meetings and really to assist with the report writing and pulling those recommendations together. Committee staff are here to coordinate meeting agendas. Angela's just been awesome and so organized, getting us meeting space, the materials, assisting in the recommendation writing, and that inform how the portal is to be changed based on your recommendations. So really a technical resource for us. Okay. We also then have some national experts. Miriam alluded to that. We've got some CCDF national technical assistants, some national consultants that we can consult with, and then of course the Department of Justice and attorneys. Any questions on roles and responsibilities? Do you feel comfortable fulfilling your role? Thank you for doing so. Okay. And then lastly, there's a process called FIST to 5 voting. FIST to 5 sounds kind of aggressive, actually, think about it. It's a consensus model of coming to consensus agreement. And just a brief description, a FIST means I vote no. I vote no, I object, and will block any kind of consensus decision making. And then all the way to the other side is the 5 that says, I like this a lot. It's the best decision we can make. So you can kind of imagine anything in between. 1 is I'll barely go along with it. I'm sort of uncomfortable. I don't really like it, but And then again, 2 means I don't like this, but I will go along. I think of that as peace. Okay, I'm at peace with it. Not too happy, but we'll go along with it. 3 is the middle somewhere. I like some of it, but not all of it. And then 4 is this is fine. Does that make sense? FIST to 5. And then in the process, if as we go along, you're at a 1 or FIST, a 1, a 2, a 3, we'll continue discussion until we can really get to consensus, and everyone's in that space where you can at least go to number 2 or 3, to where you can move forward comfortably. Does that make sense? Okay. So maybe in closing out our time together, Sue, are we ready for just doing a brief reflection on how today went and suggestions for moving forward?
Yeah, that would be great. Sounds great.
Okay. So let's just do a brief, maybe pros and cons. Pros and cons is the word for the day. So what well today? What did you appreciate, and what worked for you?
I think for me, it's getting all of us in the same room. There's different language with different agencies, and just getting everybody together. There's work to be done. We all know that. So just having that space, giving us that opportunity.
Right. Thank you, Veronica. Yeah. What else works for you?
I think we identified a whole bunch of challenges.
We did. That's our task, right? Great. What else worked? What did you appreciate today? What was a positive experience for you?
I appreciated the walkthrough of the portal and all the questions that created and that arose. But I think having Jason and Angela be able to just put it up there, and then getting Kevin to pull up his own and say, yeah, but how about clicking here and clicking there, whatever. Yeah. But I think the practicality of that was really helpful.
This is Shannon from CPR, and I really appreciated all the documents.
Right. Thanks, Shannon. What? Documents. I think it was very well planned. Right.
I feel to ask questions when I didn't know what was happening, so thank you for allowing us to type up the questions or multiple questions.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I think this is going to need to be a very interactive process because.
Folks on the phone, anything you'd like to add? What went well for you?
it was really nice being able to participate by phone and not having to drive 4 hours, maybe 3 hours plus figuring out the parking lot, apparently.
Right. Thank you for being on video. Great. Okay.
And I do want to acknowledge, Eva has joined us, as we've heard, and Jacqueline Salgado is there as well on the bottom. So if you want to say hello, Jacqueline. Jacqueline had to join us a little bit later. She joined us at 4, so she's been with us in 4.
Awesome. Welcome, Jacqueline.
Thank you so much. Okay, what would you like to change? Suggestions that you have that you'd like to suggest to make the meeting better for next time?
We get a better projector.
Get a better projector and reliable.
We have those.
Thank you. Great. Yeah. Talk about how to make next meetings richer, better.
I liked Sue's a suggestion about providing us some definitions, some guidelines around certain things, so we could,
Options.
some options.
Yeah. Great. 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 Okay.
This is Shannon from CCR&R. I went through the process with Kelly Walker when we were doing the disaster prep, and they had a consultant too, Debbie, I think is her name. I don't know if we've got too many people in the room, but I think maybe down when we get into the months where we have a specific topic, if there's a question or whatever, what she did is she allowed every person in the room to have a say. You know, she went from person to person, and it gave everybody a voice to say something about it. I don't know if it's conducive for this large size of a group, but it definitely was, we got every voice.
Right. Thank you for that, Shannon. Great. Jerry.
I think we're going to be here forever if we don't have someone come with some sort of, we have some experts in the room that do this for a living, and we need to rely on them to a certain extent. They need to put a draft together of everything the way perhaps they think it should be, and I'm not trying to give them more work, but it may be less work in the long run. And then, for lack of a better term, we can pick it apart or talk about the things we like about it or not. Because we can sit here and talk forever, but you got to have something to work. And I know we've got it, but clearly it's not where we want to be. So those that deal with this on a daily basis could probably give us a much better guideline than me walking in here trying to give somebody advice that does this for a living. So that's what I would say.
And just to add to that, I think IT, people with lots of IT knowledge should be involved because we're talking about probably merging or referencing different databases. Yeah. That could be done, and there could be technical issues that we're not aware of that could really present challenges. Yeah. Certain things might not be possible. We need to know that.
You bet. Right. Okay. I think that's. I just want to clarify a point that was made a little earlier, though, that we're really trying to have the focus of this committee be on policy decisions, but not necessarily how that will be operationalized in the system. So
if I had two options and I had input from somebody that one was a lot less work for the people who are going to implement it than another option, and I otherwise found them to be equal, I would want to know that because I care about the practical aspect of policy. Yeah.
All right, thanks for that, Meg. Folks on the phone, anything else you'd like to add into the conversation to change, suggestions for improvement, things that might help your experience even go better on the phone or video?
It's kind of hard to find a time to jump in. And so as for these last two questions, you've specifically asked, hey, folks on video, do you have anything to say, folks on the phone? That was helpful. And then, I just typed my other ones in the chat box, so we're okay.
Great.
You guys should get little signs and hold them up when you have questions.
Yeah, great, thank you for that. We'll do more of that, great. Anyone else?
This is Eva. I wanted to say I appreciated what Jerry, I think it was Jerry. Hi, Jerry. We haven't met, I don't think. About, you know, like figuring out from the people who do the work what makes sense. You know, and so for those of you that don't know me, I kind of have 3 hats or 3 perspectives, which I don't think are all that different that I bring. I, you know, work with the registered and certified licensed child care providers, family child care providers, in my capacity at AFSCME. I'm a parent of 2 small children, and then I'm also on the Early Learning Council. So one of the things that that I think is important for us to remember is, you know, from the perspective of, is it usable? Is the information, you know, the right amount of information that isn't going to be overwhelming and just parents that their kids aren't in a safe place no matter where they take them? And, you know, is the information helpful for how we're looking at the entire child care system? Because if we set this up as a punitive thing where, like, for any complaint that is found, whether they're in a non-licensed or a licensed facility, how does this play into our ability to correct things and build the child care availability? Because I think many people in that room know we have a child care shortage in the state. So, you know, how are we being smart about keeping kids safe and also building our child care supply and encouraging people to become licensed or regulated subsidy providers?
Right, thank you for that, Eva. Thanks for that perspective as we wrap up our time together. I'm going to have turn to you, Sue, as chair for any final closing comments.
Thank you, everyone who's in the room. Thank you to you on the phone, on the web. Great input. I think we will be able, with staff support, to really try to fine tune and have a specific conversation in June about a topic with pros, cons, sidebars, framework, whatever all those words are, and really give this group some things to bounce off of, as Jerry's suggesting. We know we've got experts in this room, and we just, I guess everyone's an expert in her own arena, but we just need staff to really pull some of this together for us. So we'll look forward to that. So thank you all very much.
Hey Sue, may I add that not just staff, but that other people of expertise in how things work in the field as well?
Yes, I said everybody here has expertise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're right, Eva. Okay, thanks, everybody. Drive carefully wherever you're going.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pardon?
This is being recorded and going somewhere?
It's on our website.
So where do I? Early Learning Division. Search bar.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, Jason just said, Nova, he can send a link out.
Once I get it on the web, I'll send a link to everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you.
For the Early Learning Council.
Angela?
I'm gonna.